With the group, I was set aside, and I was a challenge, and I was difficult, and she didn't want to deal with me. You're putting me in a box that I don't actually need to be in. You shouldn't be doing that. You're not allowed to do that. You can't do that. Always putting someone else's perception on those with disabilities. Then at that point, I feel like I need to prove myself. I can't quit, because if I quit, then they were right. But at the end of the day, you need to think about, am I comfortable? Is this what is working for me? My name is Elizabeth. I'm from Vancouver Island, British Columbia. I have a disability called cerebral palsy. The variation of cerebral palsy that I have is called hemiplegia, and it affects the left side of my body. So my left hand and my left leg, and I guess as well my left arm, have motor impairments and limitations. Growing up, I never really thought about my disability. I didn't think, oh, I'm disabled, I can't do that. You know, I knew my limitations, but I never thought beyond that. And I would say 2 or 3 years ago, I realized I needed to start paying attention to it. I'd been told by doctors when I was quite young, if you're not careful, you'll be in a wheelchair by the time you're 50. And I was in my late 20s, and I was like, I want to start taking care of my body. It's my choice now to decide what works for me and my disability. When I was younger, I used a mobility aid, but that was a brace. And so that was always in my shoe. I had no choice, wore it. My parents, nanny would always make sure that I had it on. So that was something when I was little, I always had. But kind of through my teen years, didn't have anything, didn't use anything, didn't rely on anything. Maybe when I should have, and I didn't really think about it. When I was thinking about it a couple years ago and wanting to take care of myself, it was a kind of a journey and a process for me. I started doing physio, I started seeing a physiatrist, I started taking care of my body in that sense. I'd always thought, okay, maybe it would be handy to have a mobility aid at some point in case I ever needed it. But I never really thought more beyond that point. And then when we were traveling, I really felt, okay, like this would be nice to have. And that's when I kind of looked at getting a mobility aid at that point. I think having to use a mobility aid is always a little bit of a struggle, or it can be. But for me, I just knew that it was what I needed, and that was okay. I didn't need to explain anything to anyone. I didn't have to prove anything to anyone. I didn't have to answer their questions. Like, it was just what worked for me. I would say I discovered NeoWalk through social media. I wasn't necessarily looking for mobility aids. It was just something that I think popped up on my feed one day, and I was like, wow, they look really beautiful. That looks really fun. If I ever needed one, I would want to do something like that versus, those more generic ones that you can pick up at a drugstore, right? When my husband and I were traveling last year in England, we ended up going through York, and we were there, and I was like, NeoWalk is here. We're traveling. I could kind of use one right now, potentially. And so I reached out and I said, hey, we're in York. We're only here for like another day, but I would love to get a stick. And so I had it, rush ordered for me, went by, picked it up, and had it with me for the rest of my trip, which was really wonderful. And then also, little did I know, later on last year when I was going through a treatment, it didn't go the way it was meant to. And I ended up really relying on the cane at that point. And so that's when I realized, actually, yes, this was a really good idea, because it meant I could have it when I needed it. And going through the treatment that resulted in some pain, some discomfort, some numbness was really beneficial for someone whose balance is also iffy as is, but was particularly iffy then. I think being able to choose the one that works for me felt really empowering. Like, it was like, I'm getting to choose this. I'm getting to decide what I want it to look like, how it's going to work for me, versus going to the store and getting one that's going to work for someone from any height and that doesn't really speak to who you are or what works for you, right? I think mobility aids aren't necessarily about what, just having that adage of like, this supports me. You want to feel comfortable using it. And if you feel comfortable using it, you're going to use it. If you don't feel comfortable using it or you don't like it, you're not going to use it. Versus having one that you can choose the color, the shape, the style, all those pieces. I get to own this. Like, I get to own what works for me. So I only have one at this point. I got the Lilibet because I love purple. I loved that it was translucent, so it wasn't super bold. It was kind of just a little bit more of something that would blend in. Especially for my first one, I felt that was really important, that I wanted something that I could kind of like gradually grow into, right? So I got one that's a little bit more subtle to kind of feel confident in that. But I think for me, Lilibet for the first one was a safe bet that was gonna still speak to me. I would say some of the biggest misconceptions that people or society have of those who have disabilities, that I've at least felt in my, experience, is, all the nots. So the can'ts, the won'ts, the shouldn'ts, the don'ts, all those things where it's always questioning, right? Like, you shouldn't be doing that. You're not allowed to do that. You can't do that. Always putting someone else's perception on those with disabilities. I really, really struggle with that. And I always get it. I always get the like, oh, you have a disability, so, oh, you can't do that. Like, let's not do that. Something like that. And that is really hard for me. It's the need that then at that point, I feel like I need to prove myself. But really, I don't actually need to prove myself to anyone. It's not anyone's, business, anyone's anything. Like, I will do what I want to do, and I will do it the way I need to do it. It might look a little bit different, but that is what it is. Yeah, like all the time through schooling, like elementary school, all that, it was always, you can't, or you shouldn't. I got bullied a lot by kids who told me that, teachers that told me that. A funny story, it's very off topic, but I had a grade 1 teacher who literally, I'm very young, very impressionable, very new to this whole school journey, and she put me in a corner facing the wall, and I had to teach myself. I didn't have the inclusion from my class. I wasn't involved in the class activities. I wasn't, with the group. I was set aside, and I was a challenge, and I was difficult, and she didn't want to deal with me. And that was so damaging in a lot of ways for people. For me, being a little girl, that was a really negative experience for me. And I think it was just one of those things that was like, it's constant from, professionals, from teachers, from people that don't know, still getting told, you can't, you won't, you shouldn't. That perception from society, or these people that don't know, trying to determine what you are. You're putting me in a box that I don't actually need to be in. I think my advice for someone who's struggling with their disability, coming to terms with it, using a mobility aid, anything like that, I definitely went through that. I definitely went through the idea of like, am I worthy? Do I really need this? Is this actually going to support me? At the end of the day, I found it was about self-care. Like, I'm taking care of myself. I'm taking care of my disability. And that's the most important thing. Yeah, you're going to get those comments, and it's not going to be nice, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to doubt yourself, and you're going to question yourself, and you're going to question your worth and your abilities and all those things. But at the end of the day, you need to think about, am I comfortable? Is this what is working for me? I have a disability. I can't get around it. I can't just forget it, put it in the corner, in the closet. Don't worry about it. it's my body, and if I'm not taking care of it the way it needs to be taken care of, it's not going to take care of me. I think what I'd like people without a disability to understand about those of us with a disability is that disability is so big and so broad, we're not all the same. Just because I'm not in a wheelchair doesn't mean I'm not disabled. My disability might come off sometimes as if I don't have it. People can walk by me and not notice I have it. People can look at me and it's the first thing they notice. It really varies person to person. Disability is not, a one size fits all. It's very, very different. I think it's really important to understand that different people need different supports, different mobility aids, different, accommodations or supports in general. But beyond that too, it's understanding that we don't always need your help. Don't step in and help us if we don't ask for it, if we don't, if we just look like we're doing something a little bit differently than you, we don't need your help. I don't need you to step in and fix something for me if I'm doing it a little bit different or a little bit slower. Give me the space. Back up. Let me sort it out the way I need. If I'm taking a little bit longer, which I often get sometimes, I will get people being like, hurry up, speed up, what's taking you so long? Because I don't necessarily look disabled. No. Don't question. Everyone has something going on in their world. You don't know what it is. You don't know where they've been. You don't know how they're feeling today or what's going on in their world. Might be uncomfortable, might be, in pain, anything that a disability can affect you with, or otherwise, understanding that unless I really look like I really, really need it because I've, just fallen off something and I can't get up and I'm struggling, or I ask you for help, don't. Disability isn't about being lesser than or what have you. We're all equal. We just need a little bit of a support. What's really interesting is because my disability, it's physical. I've got a physical disability that it's got a diagnosis. It is what it is. But it's not without cognitive impacts. It's not without cognitive challenges. So I do have learning disabilities. They're not diagnosed per se and saying you have dyslexia, or you have this, you have that. It's general learning disabilities that means I learn a little bit different. I need a little bit extra time. I need things given to me a little bit differently or anything like that. I do still have learning disabilities with my physical disability. Like they go together. I think for me, what really helps me or a tip that I would give someone else, because it has helped me, is sometimes if I'm going out quickly, I don't take my cane. I don't need it. I know I'm going there, I'm coming back 20 minutes, it's good. But if I'm going out and I don't have a come home time, like I could be out all day, or I don't know what'll happen in that time, then I will take the cane and throw it in the car. I've learned, and this has only been over the last year and a half since I've had the cane, is now understanding when I go traveling, I need the cane. I'm taking it. It doesn't mean I'm going to use it, but when you're on your feet all day, long days, you're walking, you're doing all these other things, you can get really fatigued. And so you might need those additional pieces, right? You're not necessarily always going to use it, but having it handy is better than not having it at all. So usually CP is diagnosed like at birth. It's like a lack of oxygen as you're going through the birth canal. Mine was not. Mine was pre-birth. Something happened, don't know what, and I had it beforehand, and they knew something was wrong, didn't know what it was, and they said to my mom, you know, your baby, essentially they said to my mom, your baby has a condition incompatible with life. You're better to abort. And then when I was born and they're like, she's going to be a vegetable. She won't make it a month. Like, forget it. I made it a month. Well, I made it a month. She's not going to make it a year. I made it a year. Well, now she's going to be a vegetable and she's going to be completely dependent on you. Look at me now. It's a little bit different, right? Like, it's not, people can be really, really ignorant, and not just what you think, like out in general population. This is a doctor advising my mother to abort. Yeah, it's one of those things that is just like something that's always in the back of my mind, being like, well, I did that so I can do things, and it's going to be really, really hard, and it, you know, it might be a struggle, but you're going to get there. For me, a piece of advice that I would give my younger self is, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a struggle. Some days are going to be putting you in bed, you're exhausted, you're bone tired, and it's a struggle. And some days are going to be good, and it's going to be that ebb and flow of the highs and the lows. And it's just accepting that that's how it is, and that's how it's going to go for you. And just be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. I've got to be true to myself and what works for me versus what doesn't. I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I can't quit, because if I quit, then they were right.